Hey Gilbert, what you know what? Before we do that, let's get to some promos. Man, we do you know of a place where we can go have maybe a compas meeting? We have to do that at least once a month to kind of relax us, kind of chill us out. Do you know of a place where we can go, Gilbert?
Yeah, Fernando, you kind of threw me off. I was waiting for something that you like to say, but we'll get there eventually. But I thought you would never ask about a place. I've been trying to get you to Brewery X in Anaheim, man. I love the beer at Brewery X. I love the seltzers. We had them at during the draft week. They're pretty hard for your compas. I had to stop after one, but I want to go back to Brewery X in Anaheim, man. That place is popping, good atmosphere. So I know you got to drive up the 5 freeway from San Diego to come to Anaheim, but come on. I'm telling you, the compass got to go to Brewery X, and we got to get some people to join us there too.
No, definitely. I mean, it's funny because obviously I don't make that trip alone. My brother Daniel comes up with me, and he loves Anaheim because of Disneyland. Maybe this will be his second favorite place. Disneyland, Brewery X, Anaheim's gonna be like a gold mine to him. He's gonna get excited if Brewery X becomes now his place to go to.
Wow, what a pregame for Disneyland. I'm down for Brewery X.
There you go.
There might be one thing we're missing though, Fernando. I like some some alcohol to go with the beer. Do you got anything in mind for me now?
I think I have something called Garrison Brothers Bourbon. I mean, hey, fight nights are. You know what? It feels like fight night is every night, every weekend. So with that, you could. I mean, we can go to Brewery X for lunch. Then after that, some Garrison Brothers bourbon to kind of go for the fights later that night. I mean, I think it's a good double down, bro.
Damn, we're thinking the same now. We have a Saturday set, Brewery X, Disneyland, fight night with some bourbon. And Fernando, I got some news too. I heard from our guy Ryan Dyrud that the bourbon is on the way. It's being delivered, so it's coming to my house soon. I got to try. Well, I don't know about you, but I'll try it and let you know how it is.
Man, it's something else. It really is one of those things that I feel like is going to go down smoothly, and you're going to be able to relax. Maybe, hey, after you drink one or two, we can do another episode of Compas. What do you think?
Hey, me with some bourbon, Garrison Brothers, and the Compass should be fun.
Love it, Gilbert. Well, I know you like talking alcohol and everything, but you know what? It's time for the show.
Let's hit it.
Welcome to a special edition of Compas on the Beat. I am Fernando Ramirez, Chargers beat reporter for Sports Illustrated. With me, as always, my co-host, my man, my compa, Gilbert Manzano, Chargers beat reporter for the OC Register and LA Daily News. What's up, bro?
I get a double what's up, bro, today. Why am I so lucky? Fernando, I've
Bro,
been up since 5:30 in the morning, but if you want to talk football, then I'm down to be with you because I missed out earlier. So I am down to talk football for the special number 2, Compass on the Beat. Is that 3 episodes this week, man? I lost count.
bro, that is 3, and that's 3 amazing episodes. Gilbert gave you guys a sneak peek. We're talking football today. We were talking football. Now we're talking football. We're going across the pond. We're going to Madrid, Spain, to talk to a good friend of ours. He's a compa to us. Definitely excited to talk some La Liga. What's going on with Real Madrid? What is going on with Barcelona? What is going on with Atletico de Madrid? And what's going on with La Liga? Do these guys even want to win this championship or not? Gilbert, it's been like over the weekend. Let me paint you a beautiful picture right here.
Why not?
Atletico de Madrid is up 2 points in La Liga. If they would have beaten Barcelona, they would have been on top, and they would have they would have been 5 points ahead. They tied Barcelona. And then Real Madrid is second on the table. They're only 2 points behind. If Real Madrid would have beaten Sevilla, they would have been on top, and they'd be the leaders of La Liga. They tied also, Gilbert. So now we have basically Atletico de Madrid. They're 2 points ahead of Madrid. Well, now 5 because they won their game on Wednesday. But then you go below. It's Real Madrid who play on Thursday. Well, they're 2 points separated, but we'll see what happens with that matchup on Thursday. And then Barcelona is below with 1 point less than Real Madrid. So it's madness, Gilbert. Madness, I tell you.
Okay, just to get a summary, Real Madrid is in third place. Did I catch that?
Second place.
Okay, second. Okay, so it sounds like, to steal a quote from my guy, Ted Lasso, you just gotta believe, right? You need to believe to get this
That's all you
top
gotta do.
spot. And Fernando, like I don't, my soccer knowledge, I wanted to say this joke to Tom. I missed out because your boy is working hard to, break some news, a
Oh
schedule
yeah,
scoop there. But I wanted to say I'm the Ted Lasso when it comes to soccer reporters because yeah, I don't know the game, but I know the game's important. I know how to believe. I know how to get people hyped. I know how to, respect the game. I know how to play beautiful football, but I don't know the players. I don't know the scheme. I don't know X's and O's. Is there X's and O's in soccer? I don't know. But anyways, you get the point. I know some knowledge of Ted Lasso, and that's why I have you to show me the way, and Tom as well.
you're gonna get mad at me. I have not seen Ted Lasso yet.
So, oh yeah,
I
okay.
know.
This week you started out by telling me that you only went to two big league
I
ballparks, and now
know.
you're telling me you haven't seen Ted Lasso. And no excuse, you have an iPhone, you have Apple
I know.
products that you should watch it, and you are being a soccer fan. You being a soccer fan should really
I
need to
know.
watch. So
And I
I'm
and I
glad you
love
have
the
me
I
here.
love the main actor.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had me on this intro because I'm going to tell you watch Ted Lasso. But people who are watching after this interview with Tom,
Yeah.
with my guy Fernando, you need to watch Ted Lasso. Everybody needs to watch Ted Lasso. It's a great show. And that's where I get most of my soccer knowledge.
There you go, Gilbert. So without further ado, let's get to that. Let's get to that interview with Tom. Enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited for this next guest. I am getting hyped. You all know I love football. I love football, but I love football as well. Uh, the biggest sport in the world. Today, we got an expert from across the world who gets to see elite soccer on a daily basis. This guest is based in Madrid, Spain, España. You guys know that's one of my favorite countries. That's one of my favorite cities in the world. I'm talking about the one and only Tom Allnutt, a sports correspondent for AFP in Spain, of course, in Madrid, for AFP news agency. Tom, thank you so much for joining Compas on the Beat. How are you doing? And I see the sun's still out a little bit out there in Spain. What time is it right now out there?
It's about 9 o'clock in the evening, so it's yeah, it's still light, still sunny. As you know, in Spain at this time, people are just kind of getting going. I mean, what is it tonight? It's Wednesday evening, so maybe slightly quieter, but probably most people are sort of going out for dinner about this time. So yeah, all good, and it's that kind of time of year where it's just about to get very, very hot here. So we're just sort of appreciating the slightly cooler kind of 20-degree temperatures rather than the 30, 40s that are coming out.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Over here, it's starting to get a little bit. I'm based in San Diego, so it's getting a little bit hot, but we're still good. I'm just gonna hit you right off with one of the questions that I need to ask. Levante and Barcelona yesterday 3-3. Last over the weekend, Barcelona Atletico 0-0. Madrid and Sevilla, of Real Madrid and Sevilla tie. Who wants to win the La Liga? Does anybody want to win it? Are they just gonna give this away and play hot potato with it? What's going on with La Liga? Who wants to win this, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically nobody wants to win, right? I mean, I think it's that thing where we've spent maybe half the seasons of debating which league at the moment in Europe is the strongest, and there's this huge idea about Spanish teams not making it into the kind of Champions League, final, and not nearly as many of them being in the kind of semi-finals as we're very much used to. And it looks like now that the Premier League is the dominant force. But what's interesting to see is the contrast in the La Liga title race against, for example, the Premier League, where you have Manchester City who have won the title already, and to be honest, have been clear champions now for quite a few weeks, even months. And conversely, in La Liga, we've got an incredible title race where four teams have basically been in it right up until almost now, where now we've got three teams left in it with 2 games to go. And I guess the conclusion is that sometimes, the best quality doesn't always equal the best excitement. I mean, I think in a way, part of the thrill of this title race in Spain this season is that you have 3-4 very imperfect teams. I mean, they all have some strengths and some weaknesses. I mean, Real Madrid, if you like, are the sort of the winning machine that we know they are. They have the kind of their experienced players, incredible success behind them, and you probably back them in any kind of corner. They're the ones you might want to put your money on because they have that sort of winning mentality. But they've been completely hampered by injuries and absentees and COVID infections. For weeks and weeks now, they're basically on their last legs. Barcelona, conversely, are a very exciting, young, sort of technically talented team, but mentally are quite fragile and have been now for a few years. Atletico obviously had all the points in the bag, had an incredible first half of the season, but ever since about February have really been stumbling week to week, really grinding out every single point they can get. And meanwhile, Sevilla are kind of the dark horses, I guess, the late runners that no one really noticed until about 2 weeks ago. And then suddenly when everyone gave them a bit of attention and thought, hey, Sevilla could maybe go on and win this, of course, they went and slipped up. And now it looks like they're probably a bit too far back to actually challenge for the title from the last couple of weekends. So, I mean, as a journalist, it's a complete nightmare, because every week we're made to look very stupid because you're basically saying, hey, look, the title is in this team's hands now, or this team has thrown it away. Now it's definitely this team, who are going to win it. And not even every week, every 2 or 3 days, we're seeing a different team slip up, and a different team basically look like they are the ones now in control. And I guess as we speak, right now, Atletico are probably the ones in control, but by the time people listen to this, I think it could be completely different. So, we'll see. I mean, I think it could very much go down to the last day, but it's definitely been the most exciting title race that I've covered here in Spain in my 4 or 5 years here now, and I guess the conclusion is that not always the best quality teams don't always create the most exciting football to watch and to cover.
Yeah, no, and you spoke about Real Madrid and all the stuff that they've had to overcome. I mean, they've probably been one of the unluckiest teams, I guess, if we can put it, with all the injuries, the COVID positive, testing positive for COVID and everything. They just played Chelsea in the Champions League semifinal. They lost. Where do you see Real Madrid standing right now? I mean, what do you think the future of Real Madrid is moving forward? They have Luka Modric, they have Sergio Ramos, they have some of these players that are starting to get older, and you kind of saw a little bit of that taking shape recently. I mean, with some of these players getting knocks and some of this stuff. So, where do you think Real Madrid stand right now, or what do you think the future is of Real Madrid right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, the very short-term situation at Real Madrid right now, as you've said, is the squad is very much down to its last legs. They're got numerous injuries, numerous problems in various aspects of the squad. But I think if we zoom that out, it's not necessarily a surprise because Zidane's, if you like, his biggest strength and his biggest weakness has been to extract every last inch of loyalty and energy from the very same core and spine of this Real Madrid team that we were seeing, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and in a way that's been his incredible skill. I think when he came back in 2019, everyone was sort of expecting a huge summer of change, because he came back to a team that for a season had really struggled. They no longer had Cristiano Ronaldo, of course. And it was very much, this is now the time to facilitate a new era at Real Madrid. This is the time to kind of, if you like, transition away from Modric and Cruz and Ramos and Benzema, that kind of very iconic, if you like, era that has ultimately been one of the most successful teams of all time. But every single era comes to its end. And what the amazing thing really is with this Real Madrid team is that what we thought was the end 2 or 3 years ago has continued and carried on. They won La Liga last season. They could still win La Liga this season, and actually reaching the semi-finals of the Champions League was also a pretty decent achievement. But I think, if you're asking what the future is, I think this season really underlined that this is now a team that needs to move on, that needs to take the next step. I think that was very clear in the Champions League against Chelsea, because I think at the moment La Liga is a little bit of a false gauge really of teams' quality and abilities. I think that there's one level you need to win La Liga, and there's another level that you need to win the Champions League right now. And I think that's been shown in Europe by the fact that Chelsea have beaten both Atletico and Real Madrid. And to be honest, Real Madrid they beat convincingly. I think they won 3-1 on aggregate, but that game could easily have been Real Madrid's Bayern Munich. We saw Bayern hammer Barca last year 8-2, and that basically instigated a huge kind of process of self-searching at Barca, and they obviously have kind of now started this process of change. And I think in a way, if Chelsea had maybe won by more goals, then maybe we'd be seeing that now at Real Madrid as well. But I think there's no doubt that this summer they need to start either moving some players on, or at the very least bringing in some younger players, whether that's from the squad they have at the moment, from the academy, whether it's buying players, and whether they can afford to do that in the current climate, obviously is a completely different debate. And linked to that as well as whether Zidane is the right coach to oversee that. Because I think, on the one hand, you could say that Zidane has been an absolute genius at winning with this team. There have been other coaches who have come in and not been able to do what he's done. I think there's probably nobody better in the world to manage this current crop of Real Madrid players. But the question is he the right coach to manage the next crop? Is he the right man to oversee the change now that the club needs? And that's really a question that nobody knows the answer to, because Zidane is a very young coach in terms of his career. He's never actually faced that challenge. We don't know if he wants to face it himself. Maybe he might even resign. He's been very coy on questions about his long-term future beyond the season. So that's a huge question mark. Will Zidane be there next season? And if he is he prepared to oversee the change that the club needs? And if he's not, then it'll be interesting to see what they do and whether they bring in someone else, and also, of course, whether they have the money now to really bring in the players that are probably required to do that.
Tom, I want to hit on those two things, Zinedine Zidane, but first I want to ask you, for years, since Monaco knocked out Man City a couple of years ago, we've heard the name Kylian Mbappe. He's a Ronaldo. He loves Cristiano Ronaldo. That's his idol. He's been linked to Real Madrid for years now. It sounds like there's been talks that he will not re-sign with PSG. Do you feel like this could be possibly the summer where Real Madrid go get their wonder kid and kind of, like, in a sense, I guess, not rebuild, it's retool and go back out there? I mean, obviously not with the same team. You have to change some of these pieces, but do you feel like this might be the first, or this could be the summer where Kylian Mbappe is finally at the White House?
I think there's two or three elements to this Mbappe saga. I mean, I think the first one is a slightly less tangible one. It's more emotional, I think, and there is definitely a sense in Madrid here that Mbappe is very much destined to play for Real Madrid. I think that is partly linked to Zidane, and that's definitely true. And if Zidane was not to be there next season, it would be interesting to see how that changed or shifted the dynamic in terms of the Mbappe deal. I think there's also a general sense here with Mbappe that he wants to play for Real Madrid and has done for a long time, and no matter what you say about Real Madrid and Barcelona's current situation and their current level, they still retain that kind of lure, that's the luster of a certain players, who basically have always grown up. Essentially, we have young players now in their kind of early 20s who grew up through an era where Spain was the dominant league in the world, where Barcelona were basically, defining the way to play football in Europe. And so you have players like Mbappe who did, it's no surprise that they grew up wanting to play for Real Madrid. That was the dream. And particularly if you're French, it's no surprise that if Zidane happens to be the coach at the time, then that's a pretty good, good combination. So I think emotionally, there's definitely a sense that the club would love to have him. I think there's a sense that Mbappe would like to play here. And there's no doubt that signing him would be a bit of a throwback in a way, because I think, it would be a bit of a throwback to kind of a previous era where Real Madrid sort of identified the best player in the world and went out and signed him. We don't have to go back too far to kind of remember those days in sort of at the turn of the century. I guess, some people listening maybe wouldn't remember that, when Real Madrid essentially every year picked the best player in the world and they just went out and bought him, But the facts are that hasn't happened now for a while. In the last few years, they've been overtaken by the likes of PSG, by Man City, by the Premier League teams who simply have now as much, if not more, financial power. So they haven't been able to do that anymore. So when we're talking about the change of era, like we were, just a minute ago, of course, signing Mbappe would almost be like an instant switch. We move on into the next era. Here is a poster boy. Here's the guy who can basically take us there. You build the team around him. You have a statement signing that the whole club can define itself around. But I guess the third element to all this is can Real Madrid afford it? And that is the big question right now. Florentino Perez has said a few weeks ago in the conversation around the Super League that if Real Madrid aren't involved in the Super League, we won't be able to afford to sign players like Mbappe. Now, let's see. It's one thing kind of saying that under pressure when you're trying to defend the Super League. Is another thing in the heat of the summer, when everyone wants to sign Mbappe, whether that happens. But there is definitely a financial element to this. Can Real Madrid afford the transfer fee? Can they afford the wages? And then I guess what happens is you have to start thinking about Mbappe's contract. And he's out of contract in 2022, not 2021. So it could be that Real Madrid, if they sort of put their sensible hat on, they might think, actually, we can wait one more year and perhaps take it for free, and obviously that would save them a lot of money. Of course, if they make a bid this summer, they might be able to get a reduced fee. There's no doubt about that. PSG will be under pressure to they're not in a great bargaining position. But I think financially, Real Madrid are not in the position they were 10, 15 years ago, where they can blow clubs out of the water. So there might have to be a pragmatic decision made where actually 2022 is the year that they really go for him.
And Tom, you mentioned Zinedine Zidane, and I mean, there's been some people love him, some people don't like him. Some people think he's a fraud, others think he's a world-class manager. And I really felt like during the era of Cristiano Ronaldo, that back end where Zinedine came in, he was making the correct moves. He was putting in guys in place to succeed. It maybe has come a little bit under fire recently, especially with some of the injuries that they've had, and obviously the team not being at 100%. But do you believe that two-headed question. One, do you believe he is the correct manager to move forward with this new era of Real Madrid? And two, do you feel like he is a top-notch coach? Do you feel like he is one of those world-class up there with like Pep Guardiola, with some of these other managers? Do you feel like he's up there with some of these guys?
No, I really think you can't argue that he isn't. I mean, when you look at the trophies that he's won at Real Madrid, when you look at the rate at which he's won trophies, I mean, you just simply can't say that he's not in that top bracket of managers. I mean, whether or not he is the kind of coach, that you would put in the same bracket as Guardiola, as Klopp or Conte, I don't know. I mean, I think, to answer your question, really, I think in a way, the answer is he's the best coach for Real Madrid, and I think he's the best coach for this Real Madrid at this current time. And I think that speaks to quite a few things with Zidane. And the very central thing is that he understands the club perfectly. I think obviously having played there himself, having been a player of huge quality who has experienced, let's be honest, when he played for Real Madrid, he experienced the pressure of playing for Madrid as well. It wasn't all, it wasn't all roses for him in nowhere at all. He experienced being whistled at the Bernabeu. He experienced, the pressure of the media. He knows what that is like. And I think when you speak to the Real Madrid players, what they always say about Zidane is that he understands players. He understands what they want week to week, day to day, what they want to hear at halftime matches, what they want to be told on a Monday morning after a match when they've lost. He knows when to give them a break. He knows when to give them a kick up the arse. He knows when to defend them and when not to in public. And we've seen that, this season even, in some certain press conferences where he's been very quite defensive, quite confrontational even with the media when he feels like that criticism has gone too far. And, we've seen a reaction from the team. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think, there's often this idea that players, aren't interested, or at least they say they're not interested in what the press say and what happens in press conferences. But there's absolutely no doubt that when you walk around the Real Madrid training ground, the training ground is completely full of televisions everywhere in corners. In every corner, every room, there's a television, which is basically broadcasting the press conference that's going on. So there's no way that players are not hearing every single word that Zidane says. And I think he knows that. He knows how to get the best out of this group of players. Now, is he the right man to be a tactician, to bring through a new philosophy, to be on the training ground and to be working on different systems and formations? Probably not. And I think actually he said that himself. He said, I might not be the best tactician, but what I do is I motivate. I keep people calm, and I think this is one of the big things that Zidane often says about himself, and it's said about him is this sense of composure, this sense of tranquility where he can basically diffuse any situation. And he has this aura, when you, I mean, it's a bit different across Zoom, that's for sure. But I mean, when you're in a press conference room with Zidane, there is no doubt that he has the room in the palm of his hand, because he just has this ability to convey a sense of control, of calm. And I think you can't undervalue that when you're the coach of Real Madrid, because as you know, every single day here, every single hour of the day, there is a new controversy. There is something else that is bothering the press or the fans here, and he has this ability to stand above it. Now, it will be fascinating to see, and I'm not professing to know the answer. It will be fascinating to see if Zidane leaves Real Madrid and goes and coaches somewhere else, where the challenge is a different one, where he's asked to bring through young players, where he's asked maybe to to find solutions tactically where maybe he goes and manages France and he has to kind of manage in tournaments. It'll be fascinating to see if he can repeat his success. But I think if you look at his Real Madrid career, the only conclusion you can come to really is that he's been a genius. He's come back when Real Madrid. Not to go on too long about this, but when he came back in 2019, he picked up a team that were on their last legs. That they'd been under Julian Lopetegui and also Santi Solari, and the whole season looked like a team that had basically run out of gas that would need basically to be completely thrown out and start again in the summer. Zidane didn't do that. He started with the same squad, the same team the next season, and he won the league. He has this ability to renovate, to ride storms, to recover and to revive, which I think is unparalleled. And I think whether or not he can do that in a different context, I think is a different question. But if you're asking, is he a good Real Madrid manager? I think he's the best one at the moment they could ask for.
And now shifting over to the other two big clubs in La Liga, do you see Atletico and Barcelona? Are they going to be able to do something with this transfer window? Do you feel like they might be able? I mean, obviously the question at Barcelona is, will Lionel Messi stay? Is he going to go somewhere else? Is he going to re-sign his new contract with the new president coming in? So do you see any changes coming to Atletico and to Barcelona at all?
I think with Barcelona, there are a few questions. I think the first of all, obviously the Messi question, it almost dictates everything, really. I don't think even he knows necessarily what he's going to do at the moment. Even journalists who are quite close to him and his entourage don't seem to have much information right now as to his thinking. I think the club are obviously very keen for him to stay, particularly the new president, Joan Laporta, I think has said many times that he's desperate for him to stay. But I think there is a realization that it's becoming increasingly possible that he will go, and I think in a way, actually this year that we've had since last September when he sent that infamous burofax, I think it's been useful for everyone, because in a way it's like one of those things where like any kind of painful breakup or divorce or whatever, over time it becomes slightly more easy to stomach, and I think last summer when it became clear that he wanted to leave, it was a bombshell. I think everyone in here in Spain was incredibly shocked. I think everyone around the world was shocked. It was a huge international story. If we fast forward now, whatever it's been, 9-10 months, that idea of Messi not playing in a Barcelona shirt, okay, it would still be a huge deal. There's no doubt about that. But I think it has become slightly more palatable. And whether or not that makes it easier now for Messi to leave, I don't know. We'll see. But there is also a financial reality about this. And if Messi does leave, there is no doubt that there is an advantage. I'm not saying it overall it's an advantage for Barcelona. Just look at the goals and the assists and his performances, to be honest, this season, and particularly in the last few months. You can't say, I don't think ever, that Messi leaving is going to make Barcelona a better team. But what it will do is it will open up a lot of space in Barcelona's treasure chest. They will have a lot more coins to throw at someone else. And if he does go, then it's possible that they might be able to afford a lot more than they would otherwise. Because the bottom line is, even more than Real Madrid, the bottom line is Barcelona don't have any money to spend this summer. They just don't. Any money they're going to be able to spend is probably going to come from sales. And they have some players they might be happy to sell. There are some players who are not performing, who haven't done as well as they should have done, and perhaps they can make some money. But the problem here is twofold. One, the buying clubs tend not to have any money either, unless you can convince Man City or PSG to enter the bidding. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, not many clubs want to buy players who aren't playing well. So it's one thing to sort of say, okay, let's sell Coutinho for 70 million or something, but who's going to pay 70 million for a player who hasn't played well now for 2 or 3 years? That's the problem they have. So what they might actually have to do, if they really want to spend a lot of money, is to sell players they don't necessarily want to sell. And that's when you look at the squad that Barca have, and you look at maybe players like, people like Dembele, even people like Pedri and Fati, people who, like, some of their young players they really would never want to sell, who could really be the future of this team. Those are the players they could probably raise big money from.
knowing that you have a small window with Lionel Messi still being at the top.
Absolutely. So I think in a way Barcelona are going to have to take some tough decisions. If they want to renovate the squad, they're going to have to sell some players and make some very smart calls on players that they can get rid of. The alternative is to basically buy cheap players. Some players may be available for free or on loan. And of course, turn to their academy, and there's no doubt that Barca have some very talented youngsters, who they can turn to. And to be fair to Ronald Koeman this season, he had turned to, and they have actually delivered, and I think that could be the answer, maybe more likely than a sort of a fire sale, is that actually they turn to their youngsters more and more. And of course, it depends as well on who's in charge next season, because if it's not Koeman, then it will depend on who they bring in, and maybe they bring in a coach who they believe can work with what they've got, who is good at working with youngsters. Maybe that financial context will also dictate what kind of coach they want to start with next season. I mean, on Atleti, I think. Listen, I think with Atletico, there's always a financial reality. There's no doubt about that. They are always there's always a gap between what they can do and what Barcelona and Real Madrid can do. I think the big question really for Atletico is Simeone in a way. I mean, for a long time now, we've been wondering, is Simeone the right man to continue to lead Atletico? I personally think no doubt, yes. But, you can understand why maybe the fans, are starting to maybe want more. I mean, I think this season has been an incredible season for Atletico. Even if they don't win the league, of course, it's very difficult to get away from disappointment of throwing away a 10-point lead in February. But for them to have done what they've done, to be 2 points clear with 2 rounds left, I think is an incredible achievement for them, albeit in a season when Barcelona and Real Madrid, as we all know, are not at their best. There has been an opening for someone, but Atleti have taken it to some extent. Okay, if they don't win the title, you might say they haven't taken it, but they have taken the opportunity to be right up there, right in the running up to the end. Let's see. I mean, I think with Atletico, they have some work to do for sure. But this is, in a way, I think a couple of years ago, Atletico did do quite a lot of business. They've obviously brought in João Felix, who we haven't seen the best from. In a way, this team has already evolved a little bit. They had to let go of those sort of 4 or 5 players who were really defining, iconic players for them in the last decade. They've now gone. So already this is sort of a team that's in transition. So I would think Atleti won't be looking to kind of do too much business, more a few tweaks here and there than major change.
And then Tom, just 2 more questions, and I'll let you get out. I know it's late over there, and I appreciate you jumping on Compas on the beat. What is going on with the Super League? I mean, I see that there's only 3 teams left: Real Madrid, Juventus, and Barcelona. What's going to happen with the Super League? And I've heard supposedly 2-year suspensions for UEFA Champions League for all 3 teams if they don't jump out of it. What is the latest on the Super League?
Well, I mean, the latest, as you know, is that the 9 of the 12 original founding clubs, 9 have obviously officially pulled out and withdrawn, and some have apologized to their fans, but most have at least admitted that they wish they hadn't done it. Whether or not you think that's a sort of a PR spin or whether it's not is a different debate.
Yeah.
What we're left with is obviously 3 teams, Juventus, Barca, and Real Madrid, who are, if you like, kind of clinging to the idea of the Super League still. And there's still the possibility, that they would claim that the 9 clubs who have withdrawn, they claim haven't withdrawn because they haven't yet paid their withdrawal fee. Now, whether or not the legal details will allow Barcelona and Real Madrid to claim any kind of money from that, let's see. It seems to me unlikely, although it would be quite a coup if they did that, right? I mean, to set up a new competition and to kind of claim 300 million euros or something from a competition that never even started or existed would be quite something to pull off. But I think, at the moment now we're looking at basically the punishment that UEFA and the domestic leagues are basically handing out, and the stance at the moment from La Liga is very much that we're not looking to punish, we're looking to protect, and that's kind of how Javier Tebas has framed it. We don't want to be kind of throwing around points deductions and throwing people out of the league, all this kind of thing. We want to protect ourselves from this happening again, which I think is a perfectly reasonable stance to take, if you like. The one thing I think that dictates that behind the scenes is the reality that La Liga, as much as they have been trying in recent years to sell the league as more than just Barcelona and Real Madrid. They're very much trying to sell the league now as a more complete package, to tell the stories of Real Betis and Sevilla and Real Sociedad and Athletic Club and all these brilliant teams who've got incredible histories of their own. There is still a reality that to an international audience, to fans in the US or in Asia or wherever it is, the Barcelona and Real Madrid are still the major draw. The Clásico is still the game that people want to watch in La Liga. And so there is obviously this slight conflict there, and that La Liga, they might want to punish Barcelona and Real Madrid, but they have to also realize that they need them on side. And I think long term, I can understand why Tebas's stance is, let's protect ourselves from this happening again. Let's not just throw ourselves around and try and punish people just for the sake of looking like we want to be tough. From UEFA's side, I think it's a slightly different. There's a different dynamic, because ultimately, right now, these three teams are essentially saying we're not interested in playing the Champions League. Which is quite an incredible thing when you think about Real Madrid, for example, their history in that tournament. It's essentially their record in the Champions League and the European Cup is almost what defines the club. So. It was interesting when Florentino Perez was asked, what happens when you leave the Champions League and the Super League starts? Do you keep your 13 European Cups, or do you start at zero? And he said, no, we start. We carry on from 13, like very much with a serious face, So it's like we leave the competition, but we do carry on keep the trophies.
Exactly.
But I think, essentially you've got these three teams who are basically saying now, we want to leave the Champions League. So where does that leave UEFA? Essentially, I think UEFA are basically taking legal action against these clubs to see if they would be able to basically threaten to ban them from the Champions League if they do not leave, and it remains to be seen how that develops. Obviously I think there is a slight danger, from UEFA's side, that if they push this too far legally, that maybe these three clubs dig in, and I think they probably are aware of that as well, that if Real Madrid and Barcelona and Juventus dig in, then perhaps that could have repercussions for UEFA that they won't want. So it's a very fine balance for UEFA now as to what to do. But as it stands, those three teams are still formally attached to the Super League, and let's be honest, the idea is maybe dead for now, but I think for the long term, it's still very much bubbling and alive.
Very interesting, Tom. Let me take you back to pre-COVID 2019. I know it was a different time, feels like a different time with everything going on in the world. But can you tell us about journalism in Europe and like over here in the United States? When we cover the Chargers and stuff, we go to the games. You cover the team, and then after you go to the locker room or you get to talk to the coaches and stuff. Is that kind of similar to what you guys do? When you cover Real Madrid or Atletico or Barcelona, are you guys allowed in the locker room, or is it kind of like they bring players out to you guys, or kind of how's covering sports in Europe?
I think if I walked into the Real Madrid changing room, I think I would probably be carried out by about 10 security staff. I'd probably put on a plane and flown back to London. I think the idea here in Europe, we look on extremely with extremely envious eyes at how journalism and how the media works in sports anyway. Out in the US, because the access there, from what I hear, is absolutely incredible. I've covered tennis out in New York sometimes and got a slight feel of what that's like. I think in football particularly, in other sports here in Europe, the access is better and the general atmosphere around journalism and access to players and coaches is more relaxed, because ultimately, in sports like rugby and cricket and even tennis, the players you're dealing with are basically less famous, I think, but the facts are in football, when you're dealing with players like Sergio Ramos and Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, they are extremely protected, and so the idea that we can speak to them whenever we like is basically something where it's a pipe dream, but it's also something that was very much experienced by journalists, 20, 30, 40 years ago in this country, but hasn't really been experienced now for the last 10, 15 years at least, and increasingly more and more and more, clubs in Europe are protecting the players more and more, and so, let's, for example, on a match day, we go to a game and this is pre-pandemic, of course, and we watch the match in the stadium and we do our match reports, and then we can go to the media room and we can do the press conference where the manager comes in and sits at the top of the platform, and then he goes out again. And then there's things that are called mix zones here, which, I don't know, you have the same or...
Mixed zones?
Yeah, mixed zones where basically it's it tends to be a corridor or like an area basically where the players have to sort of walk through.
Oh no, so basically the way they do it here, basically the way they do it here is they'll bring the quarterback, and they'll bring like 1 or 2 star players out. But then if you want like the real good stuff, you go into the locker room and you go talk to some of like a player who maybe somebody hadn't heard about before, and you talk to them and you're like, hey, you had a great game. You had 2 interceptions. Tell me a little bit about what this feeling is like for you. So that's kind of, I guess, where we have it. But you guys, so it's basically like a runway in a sense. Like players are walking out and you guys grab them real quick.
If I would grab them if I could reach them, but what we have is
sorry, I meant like there's a barrier. I'm sure there's even more security.
There's a very strict barrier, right?
Yeah.
So like even if you wanted to sort of assault them and like grab them and drag them over, like it's not.
I would never. That's too expensive. They're too expensive. They cost too much for me to even attempt any of that. That's too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, what you have is this barrier where you have all the journalists behind the barrier and the players walk through. And I mean, sometimes it's more organized than that, and the club sort of organized for 2 or 3 players to sort of do the post-match press, and they will come over and do stuff. Other times it's less organized and it's more kind of, you just sort of, as they walk past, you just sort of say, have you got a minute for a word? And invariably they shake their heads and say no. And sometimes if they want to say something or they happen to be the kind of player who doesn't mind speaking in press, they will come over. But this, I'm interested in that idea of going to the changing room afterwards, and I mean, what's the reaction of the players when you speak to them? Are they happy to see you, or are they just like...
It depends on if they won or not. So like if they win, usually the players are cool and stuff. They're fine. I mean, obviously like they have to take showers, they have to do all this stuff, but I mean, usually like they'll be changing out of their gear. And they'll be like, you'll be like, oh, hey, let's just say Justin Herbert from the Chargers, or no, because the quarterback comes out. Just a random player. I'm like, hey, can I grab you real quick? They're like, yeah, that's fine. Shoot. But like they're changing while you're talking or you're asking them questions and stuff. So yeah, sometimes it's really quick. Other times it's, but man, when they lose, it's like literally like you're at a funeral house. Like it is dead silent. Nobody wants to talk to you. So it's one of those toss-ups where you go in there thinking, can I grab somebody? Will somebody talk to me? Should I even risk it, knowing that I already have the coach and the 2 players at the podium? So it's one of those things where you're really, it's a toss-up. But yeah, that's usually how it goes. I mean, if they win, everybody wants to talk to you. If they lose, it gets a little bit risky.
So you have loads of players and you also have loads of journalists.
Yeah, so it's about
all at the same time.
So it's about 53 players. So literally you can grab a story from almost anywhere. Yeah, it's a lot of like I've gotten hit in the head with TV cameras before. I've gotten all kinds of crazy stuff where you're trying to grab somebody and guys are swinging their cameras. I was actually at Jerry Jones' stadium for Thanksgiving. Chargers were playing the Cowboys, and Jerry Jones comes out, right? But like he comes out presidential, just walks out. Here comes the media, and they swarm, and this guy just whacks me with the camera, and I'm like, whoa, and like literally, I was like, whoa, what's going on? And this guy tells me, man, you got to be careful when it's Jerry Jones. Everybody's going to swarm him, especially if they lose. I'm like, wow. So before you're even allowed in the Cowboys locker room, you speak to Jerry first, and then you're allowed into the locker room.
I get it. Right.
It's incredible. It's truly incredible. But I got to ask you, what is the funniest post-match when they're walking by? What is the funniest thing you've heard, seen? I mean, I know some of the players can't be happy sometimes, or they shoot off something funny, or Just what is the most interesting thing you can recall?
Oh, blimey. I mean, I think, it can be interesting a lot of the time because you see players coming in. I mean, for example, often you see players coming through on crutches or something, like, so if someone's been injured, you get a real instant feel for how bad that injury is. I mean, for someone like Harry Kane or whatever, or Luka Modric, and they're walking through on crutches, or, if they're kind of jogging through, then that's completely fine. You often have this thing, before international breaks where you literally have players basically sprinting through the mix zone because they're desperate to catch their flight, because they're leaving Madrid to go back to Belgium or something, to like spend time with their family or go to a party or something or whatever, So
are you talking about Eden Hazard? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking around.
I
know there's a lot out there about fans not happy with him, so I just had to throw that one in there for fun.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, funny stuff. Listen, I mean, most of the time it's pretty good natured, but sometimes you do get players who will react in there to certain journalists, because they'll know that something was said before, in an article or something. And sometimes you have this dynamic where it's like, hey, have you got time for a couple of minutes? And there'll be something like, no, definitely not after what you said last week, or so you can have these like kind of back and forths where it can get sometimes quite tense. But I think in
we
general,
have that as well. The players over here, they read our stuff and they know exactly what you're talking about and everything. So they're up to date with everything we say and everything we write as well.
I mean, I think in general, the whole point of the mix zone, in inverted commas, is to prevent any of the fun and interesting stuff from coming out. I mean, it's funny because at Real Madrid, and a lot of clubs, they open training sessions up. So we have this thing where before press conferences, you can go in and you can watch training for like 15 minutes or something, and all the TV cameras get to kind of record some of the session, right? But of course, Real Madrid don't put on their tactical session where they show their formation stuff. They basically just do like a little bit of keep ball, and
I feel like we're the same. We're exactly the same. Same thing happens over here. They're just stretching. They're walking around. They're having, and then the whistle blows, and now they get into all the hard stuff, and you're like, damn, I couldn't get anything.
Exactly. And I mean, when you first arrive, you go to these training sessions, and wow, this is going to be great. And I see training, and after like 4 or 5, you realize actually it's very much training, with an asterisk next to it. But I do remember there was one session where Sergio Ramos, I think it must have been a couple of years ago, and I really can't remember the player it was who was involved with him. But there was an altercation between Ramos and this young player. They had a bit of a tussle, and the youngster I think he made some kind of joke, towards Ramos, and I think he maybe tackled him too hard or something. And anyway, Ramos basically turned around and booted the ball at him very, very hard from basically point blank range. I think he booted him in his face, I think. And it was very much, this is the kind of incident that should not be an open training session, like suddenly all the Spanish press had all this brilliant footage of Ramos, basically the Real Madrid captain, like the icon, the kind of meant to be leader, responsible, inspiring kind of guy, basically, having it out with one of the Real Madrid youngsters. And, of course, it made huge news, for at least a day or two, and people still refer to it now, So every so often, the clubs kind of, walls that they build around the players, and you do get to peek through them sometimes, and sometimes, you do get, they can't control everything, because at the end of the day, these people are human beings, and I'm always extremely surprised, to be honest, at the end of matches when players and coaches get microphones thrust in front of them, that we don't see more meltdowns, we don't see more people blaming players or shouting their mouth off about why they didn't come on earlier or this kind of thing. It's, of course, they're media trained, but I think, when you come straight off the pitch, you'd expect the emotions to be running high. So I'm always surprised, and as a journalist, slightly disappointed, of course, when the words are always extremely professional. But that's just the nature of European football, that everything is extremely, extremely manicured, and I think we've come to expect that. I mean, I guess it's that thing where, when you get a big interview, a one-on-one interview now with a Real Madrid player or something, it's like Christmas, it feels more special maybe. Whereas for you guys, when you're sort of, just traipsing into the locker room after every game and, chatting about your dinner or whatever, maybe it gets a bit tiresome after a while, right? I don't know.
No, but I mean, honestly, like in soccer, I feel like it's 15 players are like the players that you're like, oh, wow. Over here, it's a little bit less. Maybe it's the quarterback, a receiver or two, and maybe two defensive players that are the wow factor. And then
Right.
over there, I feel like Sergio Ramos, you have Karim Benzema, you have Luka Modric, you have Casemiro, you have a lot of names out there, and obviously they have some on loan, but I just feel like in soccer, it's a lot more entities, a lot more personalities. So I feel like it's interesting that we don't hear a lot more and we don't see a lot more. Because, I mean, guys will put stuff of their personalities from what I've seen. Like, I follow Sergio Ramos on Instagram, and he puts some of his personality on there. But when I see him in interviews, I don't really see that personality come out as much. Over here, I feel like a lot of the players really do show their personality a little bit more. Maybe it's to try and get sponsors. Maybe it's because that's how they are. But I mean, some guys really do. They will shine in front of the camera over here, especially because, I mean, obviously they want to be recognized. They want to be known. And I feel like in Europe, because all the eyeballs are on those players, I feel like they automatically kind of have sponsors after them, stuff like that. So I kind of feel like that's where it's different. Over here, it's like you're fighting not only football players, but you're fighting basketball players. You're fighting baseball players. So I feel like over here, that's why there's so much more of maybe a player coming out, saying stuff, all that stuff. I feel like it's a little bit different because you're competing with so many different sports. And over there, it's like all eyeballs are on Ramos, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Kevin De Bruyne, those guys. I feel like they have all the eyeballs on them. And over here, it's like you have to compete with other sports and even some of the soccer players in that sense.
That's interesting. And I think as well, there is we can't claim to be completely blameless in the media as well. The media is a very big word. It's very full of different publications and different journalists, with differing values and standards. But I think there is a slight self-fulfilling prophecy where obviously the more you have players and athletes tighten up and deny access to newspapers and to publications, the more newspapers and publications almost have to extract every last ounce out of every single word that they hear, and sometimes maybe if they had more access, they would be able to be more transparent, more honest, more accurate and reflective of what players say. Whereas perhaps when, you only speak to let's say Benzema, like once every 3 or 4 months, when he does an interview, of course, you're going to get the newspapers that do that interview, and they're going to try and make it as sensational as possible because, they know this is the only time they're going to speak to him for a long time. So maybe they jump to conclusions they wouldn't otherwise. Maybe they read between the lines, of certain phrases and sentences, So there is that sense that maybe players don't trust the media, and they would say, well, look, we don't want to give interviews because this is what you do when we do. But equally, maybe from the press side, they would say, well, look, because we don't get the access, we have to sort of make the most of the access we get, and I think sometimes that probably goes too far. But
it's give and take, basically.
It's a bit of a symptom of starvation, if you like, So I don't know, it kind of works both ways.
I agree. I'm gonna let you go with this one, Tom. I know, and again, I appreciate you jumping on with us. Who wins La Liga?
we started the conversation by saying,
I know, but I gotta ask you before you head out.
I made to look very, very stupid by making predictions, and
now
you're on.
No. Well, all of the compas, that's what we call compas in Spanish, means buddies and pals and stuff like that. All the compas don't mind. They're not going to call you that. We get stuff wrong all the time. Everybody gets, we're all good. We're all friends here. I
don't know. I feel like I'm being lured into a trap.
Never. No, don't worry about it. No trap. I just want to know what the pit of your stomach is telling you. Who do you think comes away with this? Because I have a theory, but I don't know if I'm going to be right. But I'll let you go.
Listen, I think in any kind of tight situation like this would be that you'd be a fool not to back Real Madrid. I think because they just have this knack of survival, of controlling decisive moments, and they're basically the masters of fine margins, if you like, and I think when it comes to these high pressure situations where games and points will be decided on a decision here or a kick there or a pass, I think if you ask who would I put my house on, I would put it on Real Madrid. That said, if I'm allowed to add a little asterisk, I would say that the fact that Atletico is still top, despite everything that's happened in the last 3 or 4 months, where, I mean, I haven't got the form table in front of me, but I can't imagine they're anywhere near the kind of top 2 or 3 teams in terms of points. The fact they're still there with 2 games to go with a 2-point lead just makes me wonder, perhaps they might just crawl over the line. But I think if I had to put my money anywhere, I'd put it on Real Madrid. I mean, just for example, that game against Sevilla on what are we now? Blimey, lost all the days.
Sunday.
Was it Sunday? I mean, they had a huge decision go against them. And I personally think it was the correct decision. But the huge decision go against them, and they were 2-1 down where they could have been 2-1 up, staring at defeat.
Did you think Odriozola was offsides?
I think he was, right. Okay.
I saw another picture where it showed that. I mean, I don't know if it's because it's a Real Madrid like page or whatever, but it looked like he was right on the line, and it should have been a goal.
It's funny because he was sort of going through, and then he almost sort of slipped. His foot kind of slipped,
and the foot extension, I think, is what kind of made him go over a little bit. But yeah, no, right. Sorry about that. Continue. Sorry.
What I mean with it, so Madrid, they could have been 2-1 up. They were 2-1 down. But the fact they were still able in the 94th minute to find an equaliser and just scrape a 2-2 draw, at the end of the match, everyone was kind of talking about the fact they hadn't won, of course, and that was a major slip. But it was very Real Madrid, I thought, to still, in the face of the ultimate disaster, inverted commas, to kind of scrape a point, which actually could be very, very important because it keeps them ahead of Barcelona. Obviously, it means that with 2 games to with 2 or 3 games to go, depending when you listen to this, they will only have 1 team to overtake rather than 2, which I think is a huge thing. And basically, what I mean, in those pressure moments, they're able to find something which seems to get them through. So, if you're asking me who's going to win, I would always probably want to be on Real Madrid's side because they always seem to end up winning. So I think that's probably where I'd go. But who knows? Honestly, I mean, in the next 2 or 3 days, it could be all change again.
Yeah, no, I'm and you know what? That's who I was going to have, Tom. I just think that Real Madrid, like you said, have this way of just pulling games out and really making their mark. And it's always Real Madrid scrapes, fights, even with all these injuries, they still end up finding a way. So I'm definitely with you. But Tom, again, I appreciate it. Folks, if you guys want to follow Tom's great work, I follow it. I sometimes tweet at him, asking him questions and stuff. So I know I bug him sometimes, but it's a lot of fun following him. You can follow him at Tom Allnutt, ALLNUTTAFP. You can follow him on Twitter, follow all of his great work. Tom, again, I appreciate it. Anything else you want to say before you head out?
No, not at all. Just thanks for having me, and it's been nice to chat. Don't hold me to my prediction, and that's all.
Welcome back. Now it's time for Una Más. Just a little, Gilbert, what did you think about that interview with Tom? I mean, some fascinating stuff, getting to learn about another sport in another country.
Yeah, I'll start by saying I felt left out. I felt like you kind of cheated on me by doing an interview without me. But I guess being beat reporters, you got to go when breaking news calls. So you and I are on the same page. You got the interview done, and I got to watch it. Great stuff. I know you like to talk soccer, so it went a little long, but very informative. I learned a lot. I'm still Ted Lasso, soccer reporters, but I feel like I learned a lot from Tom, and I was really kind of surprised about how it is to be a European soccer reporter. And I complain out here in the United States about how it is to cover the NFL. Over there, the access is very limited, so that really kind of stuck to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, he said that at one point that Karim Benzema sometimes, who's one of their strikers, Real Madrid striker, he's very famous. He sometimes goes 3 or 4 months without speaking to him. He's like, sometimes when we get one-on-one interviews, like, it's amazing because, hey, I haven't spoken to this guy in a long time. And I'm like, wow, can you imagine not getting to talk to Justin Herbert or Keenan Allen or some of these guys for months? I mean, that would be really weird. But definitely, there was one time, and hey, players treat them differently too. I remember one time this news agency, and this is what Tom was talking about. The players know. That's how I told him, hey, players over here know too. And like, they know when we're talking about them, they know what we're saying about them. But here's the interesting part one time, and Tom didn't tell me this, I just remember watching it. Cristiano Ronaldo, a reporter walks up and hands him up, like he's trying to interview him, and he asks him, hey, that news outlet had said like they had been crapping on Cristiano. Cristiano grabs the microphone, throws it into the river, and says, send me a bill. I was like, oh my God. Can you imagine something like that? That would be crazy.
I want that NFL to have more of that, but then not to my recorder though.
No, obviously, because I use my iPhone, so no, don't do it to mine. But it's crazy the way everything is different. But Gilbert, I just want to know: did you take notes? You understood everything that Tom talked about? I mean, you got a handle on what is crucial and what is at stake this weekend in La Liga?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, Real is in second place. I think my boy, my tocayo, Gil Manzano is reffing the game
on Thursday.
If you're watching this, before Thursday, Gil has you guys, Real Madrid fans. Actually, I'm not too sure because he
does.
He's a friendly ref for Real, right? Not for Barcelona.
Whoa. What are we talking about friendly for? Like he's just a referee.
Oh.
There's no special. There's no special. No special nothing. No.
Well, I might have told my guy Gil Manzano to throw you another favor, but whatever. You don't need.
Yeah. That wasn't a penalty. So
is that a thing? El VAR is that as only?
VAR. Yeah.
Is that a World Cup thing? Okay. Is that it?
No. So VAR. You know what VAR is though, right?
Yeah, like the replay review?
The replay. Yeah. They just never had it before. They would go off of their eyes, and now they have it. But like even that thing is all messed up because sometimes they give handballs, other times they don't. So it's VAR.
It's like the NFL. Mess. Can't predict. Well, you know what a catch is and all that. It's okay.
Yeah, but no, hell no. In the NFL, they don't know what a catch is. Over here, they don't know what offsides is. There's times where I get frustrated, Gilbert, and
I still don't know what that is, to be honest.
Neither do I. I mean, did Des Bryant catch it? I don't know. All this stuff. I get frustrated, but hey, it was very informative. Again, we'd like to thank Tom for coming on. Great interview. He really did give us a lot of insight. Man, I didn't know we had talked for 50 minutes. Honestly, it felt like 5 minutes, but a lot of fun, very informative, and I got to learn a lot about how journalism, and you and all the viewers are getting to learn how journalism really is in Europe.
Yeah, and credit to you, Fernando. You're versatile today. You cover American football and the world football. Exactly. So Compas on the Beat is very versatile. We don't just stick to football. We love football, but we like, some of us are trying to like football a little better, but you are a fan of the sport. We like boxing, we like MMA, so we do it all, and we appreciate the support from all the listeners who like a versatility from us.
100%. Hey, who knows? Maybe one day the compas will be in Europe covering something out there. Hey, we're international. We're Pitbull-esque. We're Mr. Internationals. We'll go out there and do some other stuff.
Dale.
But for right now, Gilbert, ya tiempo de irnos.
Ya me voy a dormir. No, for reals this time. Ya nos vamos. The special is over. Pues vámonos.